starting. He's starting, and he been starting that much since he bought the Cowboys. Look, man, I love Jerry Jones because Jerry keeps it real. Jerry, he don't miss a beat, man. He never missed a beat since I was a kid to an adult. This man has been the same and been very consistent on how he does it. You know, he interacts with his quarterbacks, man. He just been real consistent. I just can't. I don't see anything wrong with Andy Dalton coming and thinking he's about to start. Even though he goes on record saying that he was, you know, he coming to help Dak. It's just like saying that comment helped Dak. So 20 and what you said earlier, my bad, I'm lost for words, to bag up what you said about Dak having a good year. I mean, he threw for 4,900 yards, 30 touchdowns. He only threw 11 picks. And, I mean, I believe they went 8-8. I think people are missing the fact that Dak Prescott isn't who they create him to be. I looked up Andy Dalton stats, and that was very pointless because I already could tell. You know, no beef, Andy, but you ain't at TCU no more, man. So like, he was managing the game, maintaining the game. I mean, 2019, his attempt percentage was 59.5. Man, like you I mean, you got to go to the teacher, get it rounded so you can get a 60. I mean, I don't. What are we doing? What are we really are? Who's going to be the starter? It's got to be Jerry Jones. Dak Prescott, to me, has fell into a position where, in my opinion, the NFL is doing what they got to do. It's a business. I remember on record going back, and I hate to do this, but I got to because I really want everybody to understand my point of view of it. The reason I feel like that with Andy Dalton is because I remember in 2017, Jerry Jones said, if anybody on this team kneel, he's kicking them off. Okay, I didn't like that, but I respect Jerry Jones, and it's his team, right? And then 2018, you got Dak coming out, and the way he said no about the protest, it wasn't like, no, I don't really agree with kneeling. It was like, no, I wouldn't do that. I feel like it's somewhere else that you can, you know, he was saying you can Kaepernick can do what he needs to do. I felt like it was wrong for him not to address who was actually kneeling, not to address who was actually starting the trend of trying to make a difference. You know, we all know the Kaepernick story. It changed from kneeling about the police to, oh, I'm kneeling to disrespect the flag. They changed the narrative and created this idea around this person that wasn't true. So now he's no longer in the NFL. But watch this out. The same guy that didn't kneel, the same black man that didn't go with his group, and I'm not saying he was wrong for it. I'm just proving a point. He now is needing the black community to speak up. That's not crazy. Is that not? I mean that's so hilarious. Like now you got Stephen A. Smith talking about something. It's a disgrace. How? In what world? Jake Delhomme. I was looking at Jake Delhomme. Jake Delhomme's a better quarterback than Andy Dalton and Dak Prescott. Jake Delhomme at least went to the Super Bowl. Okay, so what are we? Let's stop mixing apples with oranges and mix apples with apples and oranges with oranges. Andy Dalton is a backup. He is the backup. He will be a great backup. But with the Cowboys, I'm sorry, with having Zeke and the way that defense might end up being a top 5 defense again, because the defense is really good. And then you got Zeke, man, and that O-line. I don't really need to argue about what quarterback to put in. I just need to know which one is going to maintain the game long enough for Zeke to get, 20 carries, whatever quarterback to throw at least 200 to 150 yards with 2 or 1 touchdown, and that's it. They want them to manage the game. They do not want a true quarterback. I looked up Cam stats. I mean, his attempt percentage It's low, but it's low because he's a running quarterback, which what makes Dak look bad is that he is a passing quarterback like Andy Dalton, and their numbers are almost identical. That's it. That's my only gripe with Dak asking for more money. You look like the guy that's coming in. His name is just Andy Dalton. That's it. And that makes to me as an athlete that understood the business on the part where you didn't just get in. I respect why I didn't get in, and I knew why I didn't. Now, Dak, you got to respect why they're not paying you, and you should understand why you didn't get paid yet. And if you don't, it's like it's a black thing. That's not fair because when it was a black thing, you didn't stand up for it. So don't make it a black thing now. Please don't do that. I hate when black quarterback this, black. No, the best quarterbacks in the league are black. The quarterback that just won the Super Bowl was black. Okay, we got it. You can try to say that black quarterbacks don't get it, whatever you want to say. Lamar Jackson is better than most of the, Caucasian. No beef. Let's just put numbers to numbers. I mean, our guys, they got it. And I don't want to say our guys like black versus everybody else, but we you understand what I'm talking about. I mean, so that's just my spill on it. I feel like it's not a black thing, and I feel like the starter of the Cowboys that for every position, even O lineman, is Jerry Jones. So I love Jerry, bro. I respect it, man. He just keeping it real. It's not racism, and I hate that.
Here's what I'm gonna throw at you guys right here, because it's interesting you say that, because I think where also too what can't get lost in the sauce is that Dak is looking at amongst his peers in the league, and when you can see that some quarterbacks that are very mediocre getting paid the type of money when they've done just as much as he's done. So if we said if that's nothing, then why are they getting compensated market value? So that's the thing that what I want to throw out and say, hey, look, if quarterbacks are getting compensated market value, regardless of what they've done. And the interesting thing is also too, is that, Dak's completion percentage is absolutely a little bit higher than Andy Dalton. And also too, when you look at his win percentage is actually better than Andy Dalton's too. Andy Dalton has won 9 games more in wins than losses, whereas Dak is 16 games more. I think one of the things, Mike, and I'm going to throw this to you. I'm going to start with you on this one. If Dak is the starter, let's say Dak starts opening day, at any point does he relinquish that starting quarterback position?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think, injuries. How many seasons has he played a full season without injuries? And B, with the pressure in Dallas, if he goes 2-3 games where it's mediocre, or there's that they've lost 2 games, they need to win that third one. It's on the road, and they need to make a statement, and he doesn't show up. I think they will make a change. They don't have Garrett there that's scared to make those changes. They will make a change. The new head coach isn't necessarily married to Dak. And I think the other thing that we're missing is, and Darren touched on, is Jerry Jones will keep it real. He will either say it verbally in an interview, or you can tell by his actions what he's thinking. And if he really believes you to be a playmaker and a difference maker, you get paid at Dallas. He pays his difference makers. And so what he's telling us right now is he's not 100% bought in that Dak is that difference maker. You know what I mean? He thinks that he can get another quarterback with similar stats, maybe not the same, and bring them in, and they can manage that team. To Darren's point, their stats are kind of identical, and Cincinnati is a place where quarterbacks go to die. And once they lost AJ Green, he wasn't going to put up no stats. So I could see him, kind of discounting last year's stats and saying, you know what, I get a guy that can basically do the same thing as Dak for the cheap. And, if Dak doesn't step up and deliver, and he's not that difference maker and proves it to me, then I haven't lost a ton of money.
That's true. Darren, I'm gonna throw that lob to you, man, and get you to answer that same question. So the question is, at any point does Dak, if he's an open day starter, relinquish that starting QB position?
If he starts, knowing the Cowboys and knowing how like the propaganda is great. If he started, I think he might end up being good. I think he'd be good. I don't see them throwing in Andy Dalton in the middle of the season just because Andy Dalton's not a rookie that's young and that's coming in and that's just, full of motivation and new moxie. It's not that. It's Andy Dalton. No beef. It's just Andy Dalton. He's a pro. He's been here already. I don't see him being thrown in unless like they already know they was going to throw him in. Unless they already knew they were about to throw him in.
That spark.
Yeah. That's what I see. I see Dak running out there and McCarthy doing this and then telling Andy to go in. That's if anything, that's what I see. But nah, I don't. I think Dak, if he starts, he got it. He got it.
You think you guys think that this move was some pressure on Dak to say, hey, look, you don't sign a deal. And from what I've been told, that the deal was a very it wasn't as conservative of a deal that some may tend to think. But also, too, we got to keep in mind as fans, lovers of the game, that, sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes it's the way the language is written in order to obtain the money. So, you got to have X amount of wins, or you got to have X amount of completion percentage, yada, yada, yada. But the language may kind of be the difference in terms of, him signing it or not. But, Mike, I'm going to ask you that, Mike. So do you think this move was made more so to put pressure and kind of have leverage for the Cowboys to say, hey, the ball's in your court?
I mean, I think it goes back to what Darren said. It's a business. And you're a poor owner or leader of a business if you don't have contingency plans and backup plans or what have you, and some competitive depth. Again, I don't argue with them bringing Dalton in. I think for the team, it is a smart move, but I think the way it's kind of being handled and not making sure, if you believe in Dak, not making sure you've taken care of that first, I think that could cause a rift in the locker room. But I think as a owner of an organization, you definitely got to bring somebody like him in, or you bring in someone like a G.A.M. and make sure he's healthy, or a Teddy Bridgewater, even though, he really is a starter in this league. I mean, you bring in some guys that if that goes down, you don't miss a beat. So, as a general manager, a owner, a coach, I think they definitely had to address that position. So I don't fault them at all for that.
Yeah. So one of the things though that continues to come to mind, and it's just like, I think it's because Andy Dalton has had some success. Like he's made the playoffs several times. I think it was like 5 or 6 times, or five years in a row with the Bengals. And I think it's kind of that allure of, hey, look, this guy has won or gotten to the playoffs more than Dak. Now, granted, he's been in the league longer than Dak. But, when you look at some teams that made the similar moves, but not as big of a name as at quarterback. So let's say, for example, with Mitch Trubisky, this might rub D the wrong way. D a Bears fan. So Mitch Trubisky, clearly the Bears don't believe in him, and understandably so. They didn't exercise his 5th-year option, but they brought in a backup quarterback to compete. And I think we can be honest and say that Mitch Trubisky's time is clearly up in Chicago, but back to what you guys said though too, Andy Dalton, we know his ceiling. We know what he's accomplished. We know what he's capable of. And based on, his history with the Bengals, is that he can get you to the playoffs but that's about it. So keeping in mind, understanding that, yeah, it's a business and this and that and the other, but in the NFL about the business of winning. So why do you want to bring in, if you consider your current quarterback to be, just okay, just all right, mediocre, then why bring in somebody that mirrors him if the business is about winning? So Darren, what do you have to say about that?
Bringing in Andy Dalton brings a veteran presence. It's not really about losing or winning for that move. It's a veteran presence. They need a veteran presence at QB. I mean, only reason Tony Romo was such a good leader is because, I mean, he was behind Drew Bledsoe. You gonna learn something. He just came from the Patriots to the Cowboys, and there's no way you're not gonna learn anything. And then the way that Drew Bledsoe left the game, it wasn't like they hated him. Like, I want you out. Like how they did Tyrod Taylor in Cleveland. They were happy to get Baker Mayfield on the field. And I remember a friend of mine was like, "Man, that's wrong. They did Tyrod Taylor wrong." I said, "No, they didn't, man. They gave him ample amount of time to be the best, and he kept playing. Like, no, you gotta make plays." So, no, I think they brought in a veteran presence, so either Dak can get that fire lit under him, or Jerry just build a nice little force field around Andy, and they go from there. Either way, I don't see it as a bad thing. If they don't pay Dak, I don't see it as a bad thing. If they do pay Dak, I don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as the Cowboys just making, like, I'll give you an example. Like, for the Bears, that quarterback situation is trash. Both of those quarterbacks trash. That's just bad. Like, you get Nick Foles, the person you played in the playoffs when you didn't make the playoffs because of the kick, but Nick Foles didn't do anything in that playoffs. We would have beat him. Out of all people you would have picked up, you got Nick Foles. So that's a prime example of, like, just making a bad decision. That's like how Cleveland was doing LeBron back in the late 2000s, man. Like, they just kept making bad decisions and putting him in even more of a terrible place in this whole, like, LeBron, Kobe, and Jordan group. People keep on putting them together, but you can't. Kobe and Jordan had coaches and GMs that played that sport. LeBron is the coach, the GM, the mascot, the guy the guy. Listen, man, he the guy that let people in. He the guy that valet the car. He the guy that tells them, "Hey, man, come fix the printers up here." He's the guy that does that. He's the guy. And when that happens, you can't win. And I don't understand how people just keep raving over him and not being honest. You don't have who your coach? Who telling you what to do? You telling everybody else what to do. You calling people, telling the coach, "Hey, hold on, coach, I'm talking." Anyway, guys, like, no, we're not about to do this. So no, man, I think the veteran presence will help. Though I believe the veteran presence will help. But at the same time, if I was a Cowboy fan, as a Bears fan, I'll be kind of happy. Like, at least Andy Dalton might go for, like, I mean, his best year he went for what?
He don't scare you.
He was 25-12 for touchdowns, interceptions. 25 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Hey, look, if he can muster up something like that, he might do what they need him to do. I mean, again, veteran presence.
I agree with you on the veteran presence. The other thing I would chime in on this one is we said it a couple of times already. He's identical to Dak, right? And so one of the things I'm really big on when it comes to organizations is if you got a scheme, fill your roster with folks that fit that scheme. And they're both pocket passers. We've looked at teams like Denver. We looked at teams like Baltimore, where they have, running quarterbacks. But then you looked at Denver when they had Tebow, And he wasn't the greatest quarterback, but they were winning with him. But if he got hurt, they would have had to switch their whole scheme because the backup quarterback was not like Tebow, was not a running quarterback, right? And Baltimore has Lamar Jackson. And if he had gotten hurt, they had old buddy that was from Washington. What was his name? The Heisman guy that was backing him up from Baylor.
Oh,
I forget his name. He got ran out of Washington or whatever. Gosh, what is his name? I bought my kid his jersey and everything, but
it's a quarterback.
Yeah, you're talking about
RG3.
RG3, yeah. So yeah. if Lamar had gotten hurt, they had a running quarterback that could have tried to execute that same scheme. And so I think Dallas, choosing a quarterback like Andrew Dalton, who is basically identical, still fits their scheme. If they would have brought in somebody like a G.A.M, they would have had to kind of alter that scheme a little bit because we already know he's got some, issues with his shoulder and arm and stuff like that. And he is more valuable when he's a threat to run and pass. So overall, I think it was a solid decision. It's just, are you going to pay Dak or not? And I think they do need to be clear of, hey, this is Dak's team. Make that statement and say, hey, this is Dak's team, but we brought in competitive depth. Jerry has no problem. He should be able to say that if he feels that way.
Yeah. I think that's a very valid point too. I mean, point well taken. I mean, it's at the end of the day, I think that comparison does do well because, I also think this when they say, what's the saying? When you have two quarterbacks, you don't really have any quarterbacks. So I think so too. And I'm going to throw something back at you guys too. I want you guys to answer, get your take on this. At the end of it all, what's the final record? Do the Cowboys make the playoffs with either quarterback? Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to blow up the team and start from scratch if they don't win 10 games at a minimum. I mean, they've got all the pieces. Like Darren said, I would be surprised if they don't finish in the top 10, top 5 in defense. They've got, a strong offensive line. They got Zeke, Cooper, and then they've added CeeDee Lamb. So now you got two really good threats at receiver. So I think it's a total disappointment if they don't win 10 games and make it into the playoffs. But we all know that pressure in Dallas is different than playing in some other teams, and so it could get away from them real quick, and chemistry could throw it off. But if they're humming on all cylinders, they are definitely a playoff team on paper. With a minimum of 10 wins would be my expectations, or it's a failure of a year. I mean, you got a Super Bowl winning coach that knows what it takes to win. Now, you can't. We always in the past 5-6 years used to say Dallas is good, but their coach is Garrett, right? And we expected Garrett to make some mistakes or not pull it together the whole season. We're not expecting that anymore. We're expecting them to play to the level of the talent on their team. So they better be a playoff team, or Jerry really gonna slap somebody.
Darren, so back at you with it. So ultimately, regardless of who's at quarterback, how many games they win and do they make the playoffs?
Okay, before I answer that, I do want to say this. Jared Goff, before 2 years in a row, he threw for 4,600 yards. And I just want to let it sink in that he threw 22 touchdowns and 32 touchdowns. The 2018 year, 32, 2019, the last year, 22. Jared Goff can play football. I hate when Carson Wentz can play football. They nice. That's not why would don't do them like that. I mean, Carson Wentz is so good. He wasn't even there, and his team won the Super Bowl. That's how much power he had that year. That's how much influence, how much juice, motivation he gave his team. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But the Cowboys, man, the 8-8s, I call them 88s. Like, y'all remember Gridiron game? 88 game. They're going to be 8-8, bro, regardless of who the quarterback. They're not – they keep fighting over the same thing every year. Who to give the contract to? Who to give the contract to? Do we give it to this guy or that guy? And the thing with Zeke made no sense. Zeke was the leading rusher. That was easy. That wasn't even that hard. You could have here's your money. I'll come bring it to your house. Like, that was too hard. They made it too hard. So until the Cowboys stop being the Cowboys, the America's team, the entertainment TV show, Cowboys, then we'll see that 13-3 Cowboy again. Where that Cowboy team where like, okay, man, we get in the playoffs. Oh, I might not want to see the Cowboys, man. I might want them to, play somebody else because I don't have time to compete against that defense and that offense. I don't have time for that. You don't got that no more with Cowboys. Ain't nobody afraid of the Cowboys. Ain't nobody afraid of the coach. And ain't nobody afraid of the quarterbacks, the defense. You can't do that, So I'm gonna call them the 8-8s, man. Gridiron game, baby. Yeah. 8-8, man. Now, and then if they do the 8-8, it's just I don't even think they would change after that. I think Andy Dalton will go to another team and Dak will still be with the Cowboys. I don't even think there's going to be, what other quarterback would they put in that scheme? Like what? You got who will be coming in that year? No, I can't even think of any names. Any rookies that would help. Like, no.
And it's funny you say that. They paid Zeke all that money, and then last year was barely feeding him on some of the important games. It's like, if you gave him all that money, ride with him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you that's what he's there for. But, and I think that was ultimately one of the reasons Jerry got rid of Garrett, because the decisions were so easy, and he still, was not, like you said, the same old Cowboys.
Yeah, I think something that Mike, me and you talked about this before too, how important it is as any pro sports team, and whether it's the Cowboys or any pro sports team, but speaking in particular to the Cowboys, is that they got to establish an identity as to who they are on offense and defense. Now, I tell you what, they brought in a head coach that has a history and a track record. So let me kind of bring some knowledge about Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy used to be the 49ers offensive coordinator under Mike Nolan for 1 year. The Green Bay Packers saw something in Mike McCarthy to hire him as an offensive coordinator with the 49ers. After 1 year, they hired him as head coach. Within, I want to say, his second season with Aaron Rodgers, I think they won the Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy runs a variation of the West Coast offense, one of the most hardest offense to run and figure out. So there's going to be some learning curve with the wide receivers, the quarterback, so on and so forth. I can probably agree with that 8-8 season. Probably maybe even like 9-7. It could sway either way, up or down. My point is this: until the Cowboys establish who they are, what their identity is on offense and defense, especially defense. Now, they chose to kind of go on with offense early and then some defense in the draft. Then you got to keep in mind that the players that they have possibly being reinstated, that remains to be seen. Kind of some players that, that started out like, hey, the names, they got the name. They got Aldon Smith. They got Gregory. These guys, if they can come in and make an immediate impact, then that might change the momentum of the team. But I give the Cowboys probably at least 3 years under Mike McCarthy to get back right. Because if you also look at it, what are the Giants doing? The Giants are building something. If they be consistent with what they have in New York, they got the cornerstone now at quarterback. A no-brainer with Saquon at running back. They got a good young tight end. Hopefully they can develop. So they putting the pieces in places over there with the Giants. Redskins, that's yesterday's trash.
Yeah.
we'll see. It remains to be seen. But the the NFC East,
Philly.
really, and Philly, they don't know what, like, Philly is. They after the Super Bowl, it just seems like everything imploded. But my point that the Cowboys have an easy division to win, and they could win. But that internal turmoil has got to, they got to find a way to get out of their own way. So, I mean, I just to kind of recap real quick though, if we're talking about the Cowboys starting quarterback, for the long-term future, then you got to ask, is that either one of those guys? Dak may say, hey, look, you know what? We couldn't come to a conclusion. You didn't have any faith in me as your guy. Yeah, I'm gonna go and try to get a contract, long-term contract with a team that believes in me. So, deuces. So, I mean, at the end of the day, man, I think the Cowboys might quite possibly want to move on from Dak, and Dak move on from them. Who knows? But, at the end of the day, shouts out to those 49ers.
Yeah, you're right. Shout out to the 49ers playing for second place in the NFC, because the Bucks are going to take it home. And we ain't going to even talk about Chicago because Darren going to start cussing.
See, that's that stereotype on Chicago people. That's not even right. That's not even right. Now, look, the Bears, I don't know, man. I'm gonna cry, man. I don't know what's going on, man. I got my jersey sitting in the living room. I got my cup on the table. My daughter looking at me depressed. I don't know what they're gonna do. I really don't. I know my defense gonna be cold. I know that for a fact. But
yeah. And it's sad too, because they got some talent on defense. So you sitting there watching them get older and older each year. You know what I'm saying? Knowing they're not gonna be able to keep performing at that level, and the offense just messes you up.
And then Mr. Trubisky's not even like a little upset, like, ooh, I should do something. He's just chilling, man. He just Cadillacing, man. That my coach used to say that all the time, man. Y'all out here Cadillacing, man. He is just Cadillacing, man. He is just chilling. He is coasting. My last name is Trubisky, and I'm here to ski. He is not here to play any form of football, man. Like, he's only in Chicago to ski when it snows. Like, it's crazy. But I mean, I hope he gets it. If he gets it, then it's over. Because whenever he's on fire, he's untouchable. The year that we went to the playoffs and lost to the Eagles, he was untouchable. He was doing it. But once he get in his feelings and he lose some morale and he start feeling down in himself, he started throwing picks. He started throwing the ball in the dirt. And it's like, man, you can't do nothing with that, man. You can't do nothing with it.
I tell you what, guys. Well, I tell you, let's put a bow on this bad boy, man. Let's call it what it is, man. The Cowboys sound like Darren said. They're Mr. 88, Mr. 8-8, and I'm okay with that. That's great to me.
Gridiron game. Gridiron game, 8-8.
Hey, man, I'm telling you, 8-8 gets you nowhere. But I will say this though, and I truly believe this too. Darren touched on it, and I would love to see that classic hate mouth football where the Niners and the Cowboys, it was always either the Cowboys or it was the Niners. I want to get back to that day and age where the NFC was they were wrecking shop. There was no other team that you talked about, and that could be a quick transition within a few years. Now and I don't want to speak on this too early, but teams such as the Patriots. You know what? Nobody's talking about the Patriots anymore. You know what? The 5 teams that people are talking about in no particular order. You're seeing that transition to a new day and age in the NFL. You got the Bucks. You got the Niners. You still got the Saints. And of course, Kansas City, and then you got Baltimore. Those are teams the 5 teams that any one of those teams could win the Super Bowl. And I'll say this though, when it comes down to it, this season is going to be very interesting. Of course, we all understand the pandemic that's been going on for months now. the NFL is slowly but surely, like all sports teams, trying to make a transition to having this plan of still practicing social distancing, but giving the fans what they want, which is sports. So sports family, we're going to give you what you want. We came to the conclusion that the Cowboys still can't get it right. Can't get right. Jang-a-lang around this piece, man. We're going to get them right, though, man. But sports family, it's been our pleasure. We love you. Stay tuned for some more bangers in the future, man. We out.